What will the megacities of the future look like? And one of their visions was for a nightmare dystopian hellhole called Plandopolis that I'm not quite sure they actually intended to be a dystopia, but at any rate, it certainly comes across that way.
Hi, I'm so glad you're on time. I'm V. I'm looking forward to showing you around Plandopolis today. My husband works from home. He's a virtual engineer working on one of the city's desalination plants. He controls the robots who do all the important maintenance. I think he basically plays computer games for a living. You ready to go? Have you got your calorie card open on your smartphone? I registered your visit with Slick Travel Corp the other day, so they've allotted you a journey time to match mine. It makes so much sense, doesn't it? Switch off brain and go to work. With this many people around, I'm glad there's a mega computer in charge. We're so lucky. Our kids were allocated a school quite near my practice, so I can drop them off on the way. It saves on our calorie ration. Well, it won't be long until the little darlings get their career announcements. They've been working so hard, so I'm sure they'll get something good. Not that there's anything wrong with fixing carbon scrubbers for a living or anything. Are you hungry? Let's pop to the market as we're passing. Right, what's on the menu this month? No, not meat. It's not your birthday. The Global Food Council are doing a really good job of keeping food production going. I mean, you don't get the choice you used to, but we're better off than most. I think it's probably easiest to walk from here. You barely see a car in the city centre nowadays, unless you're rich. Oh, the state knows they just aren't practical anymore. We're all trying to meet our global carbon deal. Electric bikes are so much better for getting around our neighbourhood. And why waste valuable space on car parks when you can use them to grow food? I don't care what you say, Alex. They don't deserve to live in that ghetto. They are completely disconnected. No high-speed transport system, no new internet. They miss out on jobs and many essential services too. Oh, hi again. What a day. I had to make an emergency visit to the Cry Freedom ghettos. I mean, I miss my sister like mad, but I'm glad they went when they moved to New Amsterdam. They're safe from climate change on the floating city. Oh, that must be her now. It's much easier to meet up with friends virtually now. So many cities have banned cars in central areas. Ooh, looks like she's got some juicy gossip.
Plandopolis, everyone. Are you ready to be assigned your work environment and your living quarters and your meat rations and all the rest? Yes, it's coming.
Welcome to the Doom Kitchen. This is not a news show. It's a talk show. We do not give financial, legal, medical, or any kind of advice. We are not responsible for the actions of our listeners. You are responsible for you. If anything offends you, we were only joking. Promise.
That little segment was from the Corbett Report, episode 400, Visions of the Future. And this is some kind of utopia the globalists have planned for us. And to us, I think at least, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sure you agree, this looks more like a dystopia. Here's an expert on dystopia, Starr O'Hara.
Hi, I'm Starr. I suppose I would call myself an expert on dystopia. Yeah.
You wouldn't, or you would?
I would.
You would.
I would.
Good.
It's weird to say that I'm an expert on anything because I'm one of those people that's like never stayed in one pursuit for very long, but I guess throughout my life, from when I was probably a preteen, dystopia has been my main interest.
Well, it's all around us now.
Yeah, it was real easy for me to spot it when, I've spotted it for years and years and years, like little dystopian trends, right? But then it just became ever present and all consuming, and it was so easy for me to see it at the beginning of the pandemic. Like, it took a week and a half where I was like, oh, I know how this story goes.
Yeah, I'm very similar on that. It was a few moments, and what's funny is I'm sure that it had the opposite effect because my eyes got wider open as time went on.
Oh yeah, sure. And you just, it becomes, I'll give you an example from recent news. It becomes so obvious when you start to see the institutional structures the way that they actually are instead of the way that they're presenting themselves, and you start to see the agendas that are actually playing out instead of how they're being represented. It's instantaneous when you see a news item and you're like, oh wait, this is not real, like this is totally fake. And the one I'm thinking of is the recent soup uh the soup vandalism of the Van Gogh painting.
Oh yeah.
So that was actually the second or third time I've seen in the news in the past few months of climate activists throwing things or trying to vandalize famous artworks. And I'm like, okay, maybe if it happened one time, I would believe it, Okay, some climate activists sneaked past security in the Louvre or something and threw, I don't know, or tofu at a painting. Like, it wasn't tofu, it wasn't the Louvre, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm always seeing them dumping out milk or
Right.
cutting packaging and things like that.
That can honestly only happen once. If it happens again to another famous painting at another museum, this is being coordinated on a level above museum security's pay grade, for sure. Because these are artworks worth millions of dollars. Somebody has to get into the museum past security with a can of soup, right? And then somebody is standing there filming them. They have to get past the ropes and nobody does anything, and then they throw their soup at the painting. This is obviously not an organic event.
Right. And they're also sorry, losing my train here. But they're also destroying something old, which is part of the philosophy, part of the build back better.
It's very symbolic, yeah.
Yeah. But where do you think that leads?
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the elite, yeah, they want to destroy. The agenda is to destroy tradition, to destroy our connection with our past, with our history, everything, all of the major kind of social and intellectual trends tie into that. So, we're getting rid of classic books because they have, racist or sexist language in them, and we're getting rid of the age old human concept of two genders, and we're getting rid of, like, we're throwing soup at at Van Gogh paintings, and we're saying that math is racist or whatever, and like meat is off the menu. That's what we've fueled ourselves with since time immemorial. Like, everything old has to be destroyed, and in order to usher in a new, it's not just a new way to structure society, it's actually a new way to be human. And so I think you'll find that in all dystopias, all real world dystopias and fictional dystopias, the point of the dystopia designer is always to try to invent a new way of being human and get everybody to follow along with it.
Yeah, so that reminds me of Maoism and the Little Red Book, destroying all of the olds, and every time that they try to sell you a dystopia, they're using utopia as the means, and obviously humans don't work in a way that we can have utopia. We just can't. But we can have the most from what we do have if if we do the things that make that go along. If you're prepared, if you make things work the best way for you, then you can have the greatest life possible in almost any society.
Yeah, I would agree. Natural
Possible
limits
being the ceiling.
notwithstanding, but the best possible within the context that you find yourself, um, for sure. So yeah, but I think that what you touched on about using utopia to sell dystopia, that's a major feature. That's the probably the primary feature of dystopia as it's being ushered in is the they grab onto a truth, you know, that's like everybody. So in our society it might be everybody's overworked and we all feel like slaves to capitalism or whatever, um and uh and there's just no time left to enjoy life, and it's so hard to make the bills and fulfill all the responsibilities, and this is a problem. Okay, yes, that is true for many people, and it is a problem, and it does have to do with issues related to the way that society is currently set up. But then they come in with the solution, which is like Plandopolis, you know?
Right.
So, and I think most people watching a video like that or seeing something like The Line. Did you hear about The Line? The
Oh yeah, yeah. The line of yeah, that looks like the worst place in the world to me.
Right. Yeah. So for people who are unfamiliar with it, they're building this residential I mean, it's an all inclusive, it's a self-contained society in a line that stretches across the Mediterranean region, um with or is it North Africa? It's near the Mediterranean Sea. I'm not sure if it's north or south, but anyway, they they just built they're building this huge line that is going to have all the residences and all the businesses and everything you need is in this line. It's like less than a mile wide, but like 78 miles long or something like that. And the outside surfaces are mirrored so that it looks from far away, it looks like it just blends into the landscape. And the marketing for this place really, it tries to draw out your guilt for destroying the planet, and it says, okay, we're gonna live this really great lifestyle in the line, and it talks about equitable access to nature. Which, what does that mean? So on Tuesdays we can all file out with a tour guide and go, see some rocks, or like it's really weird and creepy is what it is. And I think most people who see an advertisement for something like The Line or Plandopolis, they're gonna get the creepy effect. They're gonna be like, wait a minute, I don't
It's
really
against our nature.
yeah. But if they keep pushing it and pushing it, eventually people will glom onto it. Especially
I think
at the same time, life in the real world is getting so much more dystopian. Then they're going to be like, there's got to be a way out. We feel The Line, that's it.
a lot of times, yeah, they make they sell it to the young people,
Yeah.
and then that creates the cultural shift to where it becomes acceptable. As far as the nature thing goes, I listen to a show called Media Monarchy all the time, and he says one of his common lines is they steal the real and then they sell you the fake. And that's what seems to be going on with a lot of this thing. And then as far as what they're doing with the environmental stuff, they're basically imposing and climate tyranny on us because of all the things that they've done over the years, and they're selling us austerity and trying to make it some sort of feel good thing, and that's not it's not going to work on people like us, but it might work on other people, the people that really think that your recycling goes into a place where they actually recycle it.
Yeah, well, it's gonna work when people start starving. That's when it's gonna work.
And yeah, we're seeing a lot of stuff. So I'm in the supply line, and we're seeing places shutting down. We're seeing them cull all the chickens. We're seeing a lot of things going on with beef, especially as far as culling goes, and as far as bottlenecking into the slaughterhouses and things. And yeah, they're doing everything that they can to force us into the pod where we eat the bugs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very obvious. I mean, I like everybody who eats knows that food has gotten way more expensive over the past 6 months, like way more expensive. I mean, we're not talking about your grocery bill doubling yet, but we're talking about like significant rises to where a lot of people are probably living on credit cards right now just because their groceries and their fuel and stuff like that has their basic necessities have gone up 10 or 15% and their pay hasn't, you know. So a lot of people are probably covering that with credit cards. That doesn't have that's not sustainable, you know.
It's another way to control people. You get them in debt,
Yeah.
and they have fewer options if they're beholden to debt.
Right. But something I've noticed recently at the store is that pork is really cheap, and that triggers in my mind a thought that's like, okay, they're killing all the pigs and they're, selling all the pork really cheap because there's a glut of it on the market. Because they can't afford to feed them because the cost of feed is so high, right?
Oh wow.
So I buy pork. So I've just been stocking up on pork, you know.
But what if they're making it cheap? Because I've been seeing things floating around lately that they're trying to stick the animals with mRNA vaccines. So that's pretty scary. I could see it happening in the big farms, but probably not so much in the local distributors.
Yeah, no. I don't know anything about that, but I do know that feed costs have gone through the roof, and this is not just in the recent months of inflation. Feed costs were already going really high and being and becoming scared. Like people were, farmers were putting in orders for feed as far back as 2019, a year in advance, and sometimes it wouldn't come through. So this is a worldwide phenomenon. Like there's been some crazy weather that's happened in some of the grain growing regions in the past few years that, combined with inflation and combined with all the ridiculous COVID policy, has made it's a real stress point. It's like a huge stress point for animal agriculture. So I don't understand why they're like, everybody, you've got to eat the bugs. Why don't we feed the bugs to the animals? Animals actually like eating bugs. And that would temporarily solve our feed problem. We probably shouldn't be feeding, like cows shouldn't be eating corn anyway.
Right.
Like
And
cows should be eating grass, but pigs can eat bugs, chickens can eat bugs.
and chickens love bugs, and they turn it into food almost immediately.
Yeah. And it would be a better product. It would be cheaper to feed them. But that's the thing, is that our farmers view us as livestock, so they want us to eat the bugs.
You mean like Farmer Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab?
Yeah.
Those farmers?
Right. Yes. The property management.
So we've opened up a lot of stuff here, and I think that you're writing about solutions. And let's talk about that side of things, because I always build up doom, but I'd like to find somebody that's got, as optimistic as you can get kind of view at this point.
Yeah, I am optimistic. I think the primary solution is that I have stumbled upon is not a physical logistical solution. It's a way of viewing the world. Okay. So it's a way of viewing the dystopia. So the primary solution is to realize that crisis brings realignment. And so if you can let go of your absolute terror, even for moments of the day, let go of your absolute terror of what's coming down the pipeline, and remind yourself that crisis brings realignment. That's going to strengthen your resolve. It's going to keep you in a positive attitude and help you go about your day-to-day life doing the things that you need to do to take care of yourself, take care of your family, and with whatever energy and resources you have left, be able to help others, right? So yes, okay, so I wrote a book called How to Survive Dystopia with Your Humanity Intact. And here, I'll show it. There we go. That's what it looks like. And so it was earlier this year, 2020, that I was like, okay, it's time to stop freaking out. I mean, I feel like the whole time I was kind of like not really freaking out as much as other people, but it was really earlier this year when I figured out the philosophical kind of emotional basis of my not freaking out. And so, yeah, realizing that crisis brings realignment can do many, many good things for you. It can eliminate your anxiety and overwhelm about the whole thing. You start to realize that things are happening the way they are if you're spiritual or religious, you can say it's God's plan, or otherwise you can say there's some kind of reason for this, right? There's a mechanism in place that once things go too far out of alignment with what is good and just and reasonable, something crazy has to happen to bring it back, right? So I think that's what's happening, and that gives me a very positive and hopeful view for the future. I really like that meme that's been going around where it just says apocalyptimist. Somebody
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's just it's just a definition. Like, okay, we made a new word. It's apocalyptimist. When you realize the world is going to shit, but you still think everything's going to turn out okay. So go ahead.
It seems like the solution really is within, if we can find that's in us to equip ourselves for a world that's changing rapidly, whether it be natural or forced. I think a lot of these changes that we've dealt with lately have been forced or coerced, but we have to deal with it. I mean, it's reality at this point. And then growing and developing to take on a world that has changed.
Yeah. So really, it starts with establishing or thinking about your principles. And for a lot of us in our community and the freedom movement or whatever, we know our primary principle, our basis for everything else is liberty. But I feel like a lot of us have left other principles unexamined, or we haven't taken our freedom principle as far as we could. So I notice a lot of people thinking that, or behaving as if freedom is something that the universe is going to deliver once you like convert enough people or whatever. So their main activity in the movement is to try to convert, or to go through the Libertarian Party or whatever and try to get try to change the system. And really what I've come to realize is that the primary thing that you can do to advance freedom is to take responsibility. So,
Yep.
And I mean like radical responsibility. You may think that you're okay, well, I'm paying all my bills and I'm, maybe I'm out of debt or whatever, and I take responsibility for myself and my family. And it's like, nope, that's not enough. You can always push it a little farther, So when you have an issue that's really important to you, maybe a local issue or whatever, and you're like, God damn it, these local politicians won't let us, meh. Well, okay, how can you address that? By taking radical personal responsibility, or if you're really worried about the homeless problem, how can you address that? By taking radical personal responsibility. How can you address the issues that you see, and not only in your own personal life, but in the world around you, whatever drives you, whatever like lights your fire? How can you address that through your own actions and your own, way of engaging people, or whatever it is? As the liberty movement matures, I think that you will find more and more people addressing issues this way, instead of either waiting for people to accept the principle, which is a futile proposition, or trying to force change through through political action.
I think we ended up on a similar page with that, as far as believing in the party, or even, like I was following the caucus for a little while, and then it's like, okay, this is not going to work, and okay, cool, we get to take over the Libertarian Party, cool, we got a ship with plenty of holes in it, and it doesn't mean anything at this point. I mean, they've got the entire media, they've got all of social media, and I like what they're doing. I like all the people, but I don't think it's going to work, and I really don't think that the solution is ever going to be big party politics. But it is really fun to talk about. It's really fun to make commentary on the clown show.
Yeah, I think that the reason why it's not going to work is because they once you gain power, like the caucus gained power within the Libertarian Party, then you have a choice. You can either continue to act out of your principles and like freedom and responsibility, or you can kind of position yourself as the enemy to whatever you're against. So I think that I've seen this shift with the caucus since they took power, that now they are more positioned as the enemy of woke culture or progressivism than they are as examples and bastions of what freedom and responsibility looks like. So I think that's destined to fail.
Yep.
So.
And what are you gonna do? Okay, cool. You've got all these big names running for big offices, and it's the exact opposite of what they said they were gonna do. They could have used the big names to obtain mayorships and sheriffs and things like that. But instead, we've got guys throwing the governor race in Georgia and things like that. Whenever it's like, okay, are you doing this for yourself? Mm-hmm. Are you really doing this to make a change by grabbing the reins, which they will never let us have? They will cut our arms off if we grab the reins.
Absolutely.
But we might need that to happen for everybody to see everything. And I don't know if there's a lot of people out there that are really, I know the thing is let's be bold, but until I start seeing them cutting people's arms off, I don't think that the establishment has any fear for anything that they're doing.
No, I truly agree, and that's where it comes back to taking responsibility. You cannot control what is in your locus of control, what is in your sphere of influence. You know, you can't control national politics, and even if you try to get in there and win a race, I mean, I'm sorry, but I think in most circumstances the system is so corrupt that even if you get a few elected representatives in there, you're not going to make any change. But where you can make a change is on the local level, whether that's through local politics or just through community, or through your business. Like, there's so many ways to take radical responsibility and affect change locally where it counts for you. That it kind of seems like a wasted effort, wasted energy to go national.
Yeah, I started recognizing that, and I'm just like, I'm out. There's other places for me to dump money that I think that are supporting the people that support the kind of life that I want for us,
Yeah, sure.
But let's see. I have a couple of questions from one of our audience members, and let me grab that. Can you still hear me? I'm navigating away from the screen. Okay. So one of our listeners asks, some of us have had parts of our humanity stripped away in prior experiences. How can we build those empty spaces in current times?
Okay, well, I'm not really sure what this person means by parts of our humanity stripped away.
Well, you say humanity intact, like maintaining your humanity, and he speaks as a former military person, and they do a lot to damage your humanity, and what I think he's trying to do is restore his humanity while society crumbles around us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think that we're all victimized by the state and the prevailing way of thinking to some extent, and especially for people who have been in the military or in law enforcement, that's going to be especially harsh and probably a very critical part of your personality is going to hinge on your experiences in those institutions. In the second section of my book, I deal with the way, but I kind of call it subtle armor. I call it subtle armor against dystopian influences. And it's the way you structure your thoughts and your principles and then your virtues. So what you have to understand from the get-go is that your experiences help form who you are, but you are not your experiences. And no institution or person can have control over who you are, over your humanity. That's an illusion. That's a falsehood. Absolutely a falsehood. And one example I will use to kind of illustrate that point, and I talk about this a lot in the book, is Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Solzhenitsyn gave us basically the taxonomy of what dystopia is and how it works, its inner workings, how it goes about bringing its vision into reality, right? And he was absolutely, I mean, if you were the type of person who, I think most people are, if you were the type of person who thinks that someone's humanity can be stripped away from them by an external source, you would look at his life and you would say, yes, that happened to him. But what actually happened, according to his own writings, is that he was forced into a situation where he had basically no control over what happened to him. But in that situation, he found greater control of himself. So whatever situation you're in, whatever you're experiencing in life, there's always a way to bring it back to, what do I have control of? You know, even if they're beating you, if they're imprisoning you, if they're starving you, if they're making you do heinous things or whatever, there's always a choice. There's always a choice at some level. And that's where your humanity is. That inner, Christians call it free will, you know. I'm not some people think that that everything that happens in the human mind and the human psyche is a result of chemical processes. I don't think that. I think that consciousness is a web that connects us all. And even in a situation where you feel like you're backed up against a wall, and the authority is trying to force you to act in a way that you would not act, or experience something that you don't care to experience, that hurts and tears your soul apart or whatever, you always have a choice of how to respond, and that is your freedom. That's your humanity.
Yeah, I think this particular person, I don't think that he would be where he's at if he didn't have the humanity that he thinks that he's lost. I think that he's searching for something that's there, but he needs to nurture it, and it's really hard to do whenever you're constantly bombarded in the clown world that we live in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would just repeat to myself as a mantra, my humanity is not strippable. My humanity is with me always, and nobody can take it away from me. The only way that your humanity can be taken away from you is if you give it away. And so you are ultimately responsible for maintaining your own humanity, and it doesn't matter what experiences you've been through or what you've done. It's always accessible to you. You can really only hide it from yourself.
It's a big part of the game of the would-be controllers of the world that are they really love to demoralize us. Mm-hmm. and they're everything that they do seems to be on the page of making us more and more upset, spiking the ball, getting away with things, obviously, and yeah, so don't let them win, or at least if they are going to win, we give them hell the whole time. We make it as hard for them as it possibly can be. And so what, like in the end, what happens? Well, the worst thing that can happen is we die. Well, we gave them hell and we tried. I don't want to be the generation that ushered in Plandopolis.
Right. No, we're not going to do that. I think that, that's another important thing to remember is nobody makes it out of here alive, So if it's the fear of death, I don't think this is true of the person that wrote the question, but it's true for a lot of people. If it's the fear of death or the fear of dying alone or the fear of dying in unfortunate circumstances, that drives your anxiety or drives your overwhelm about the dystopia, then try to remind yourself that that's, it's coming for everybody and it's your choice. It's your choice how are you going to go gracefully or go courageously. What is it your unique individual perspective on how to die.
Right. And so the other thing is with all the chaos, because that is the fuel that runs their machine, is chaos, but it's chaos that they can control and give the solution to. That's ready made for those that don't think for themselves. The sheep will just eat up their solutions as quickly as possible. But as things get worse, a lot of us are going to have to see and deal with a lot of things that can do harm to our inner spirit. So what does your book have as far as like a take on on hanging in there through the really bad, losing loved ones and the things that are going to happen to us? I mean, it's going to happen to you whether we live in a relatively good society or not, but in a society where everything's falling apart and our friends are getting rounded up and all the things that could possibly happen, what do you say to that?
Well,
I give you a tough one. I'm sorry.
One thing is, I have to say, don't let go of your goodwill. I do have a section about this in the book. You don't want to become the monster, right? So develop your sense of goodwill towards humanity, towards others, even the villains, which doesn't mean that you think that they should be, rewarded for what they're doing or whatever, but is a place of understanding that what they do comes from ignorance. It's not, they are unfortunate and pitiable souls. And the people who are going along with it, the people who are like the foot soldiers in the plan or whatever, are also, they're just ignorant. They're separated from reality. They don't get it.
And they're trying to look out for their people and their self-interest. And a lot of times, and that's one of the things, is none of this can work. None of this whole thing that they've got going on can work if everybody's on the same page as far as, no, I will not enforce that. Right. And that's funny, because that's really where the rubber meets the road until they have enough drones, I guess. But still, they'll need someone to operate the drones.
Right. Yeah. So I just think that if you can maintain your own emotional integrity, which means, look, sad things happen, crises happen, painful things happen. Pain is part of life, and in a time like this, we're dealing with some really interesting, creative types of pain, maybe some new types of pain that we've never experienced before. But remembering that crisis brings realignment, and that you are, that you're here to control what's in your circle, right? To control yourself, to have authority, inner authority over yourself, not to give your authority away no matter what the circumstances are. You still have that inner authority, that humanity, that freedom, right? There's always a choice. So that if you have, terrible things happening around you, you always have a choice. How do I respond? What am I going to, lay down and give up? Or am I going to keep going? Am I going to speak the truth or stay silent or lie? Am I going to extend my goodwill and compassion to other people, or view them with hatred and coldness? Those are your choices at every moment, no matter what's happening to you.
Yeah, it's yet again, it's creating, in a way, a world that's not worth living in. So if you can't, if you're in that situation where you're cornered and the option is just terrible on both ends, try to, live the best way that you can possibly be. And whenever they catch you, if if that's the thing that happens or whatever, then, do what Stolchanitsyn said, that, like, he restored his spirit within the worst place in the world. He was hungry a lot of times. He was dealing with that the society around him, and he became a better person in the end, and wrote one of the greatest books that is it's claimed that that's what brought the Soviet Union down, but I think that's more of along the lines of economics. But but it really did show what was going on, what they were.
I'll read the quote, because I put this quote in my book.
Oh, good.
From Solzhenitsyn. Bless you, prison. Bless you for being in my life. For there, lying upon the rotting prison straw, I came to realize that the object of life is not prosperity, as we are made to believe, but the maturity of the human soul. So a lot of people think that prosperity is the object of life, and a lot of people think it's other things. Is it enjoyment? Is it, family, or, or achieving your goals, or freedom? No, it's none of those things. All of those things might be inherent in it, but the point of life is to strive. Striving towards maturity of the human soul. If you stop striving, you're done. You might as well die. So
keep it going.
Keep it going.
Yeah, don't give up. And if I don't know, I can't speak for you or anyone else, but I would say that that there's a lot of times, almost all the time, that if there's a situation, your best bet is to talk to God. And if you're not Christian, there's other ways you can do such a thing, and you might find yourself leaning more that way.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are having a little bit of a spiritual revolution evolution right now. If you're not Christian, that's fine. You don't have to be Christian. You can meditate. Meditation is amazing. The point of prayer or meditation is to get in touch with yourself. Even if you follow one of the religions that externalizes God, when you're praying, you're really talking to that little spark of God that's in you. And that's the same thing that happens when you meditate. You're getting in touch with the divine in yourself. So, and that's where your freedom really resides, and your inner authority. So
it's almost like we've found our ways to be free in the digital gulags that we live in. But let's see. So you live in the country, right?
Yep.
Okay, that's awesome. That's what I see that is kind of, you're going to deal with a lot of the stuff that's going to happen to the city people later, and I think that's a good place to be. And one of the things that I remember whenever I first met you, you were talking about keeping guinea pigs.
Yeah.
I think that
the third, okay,
brilliant.
So I want to say that my book has 3 parts in it. The first part describes the dystopia that we're in. It's kind of like it's a taxonomy of our particular dystopia, and kind of the features of it. Then the second part is what we've been talking about, the kind of spiritual or emotional, psychological. I think that spiritual and psychological are pretty much the same, but the psychological approach to withstanding dystopia. Then the third part goes a little bit into logistics, how to shore up your resources, find your community, and learn how to be responsible for your own, if the supply lines fail, if whatever happens, then you're going to be okay, or as okay as you can possibly be. Obviously, we never know. You could have freezers full of meat and then the power goes out, or you could have freezers full of meat and a generator, the power goes out and there's no gas. Like there are no guarantees. I promise you, I don't care how great of a prepper you are, there are no guarantees, but at least you're taking radical personal responsibility. So I have raised guinea pigs for meat, and I kind of have, like, it's nice that we live we still live in such a prosperous society, even as like weird as things are right now, because I don't have to eat guinea pigs for meat, and they're really cute. So I kind of prefer not to unless I have to.
That's understandable. Yeah, I didn't eat meat for years, so I fell for that thing since I was a little kid, and then it's earlier this year I was like, all of the evil people are telling me to eat this what is it, processed something. It's a disc of processed something, and so what happened, I ordered some food, and it was in Spanish, and there was some name that I didn't understand, I guess, and so I ended up getting meat delivered to my hotel, and I'm not throwing this in the trash. Right. And I'm gonna have to deal with this at some point. And whenever I ate it, I felt really good. It's like my body had starved for like 35 years for this stuff, and it turned out that I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to eat what pucks of food that Farmer Bill wants us to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was vegetarian for a few years when I was younger, and I remember I just started getting cravings for meat because I was always lethargic and tired. But as soon as I started eating meat again, I was fine. So I don't know.
I've heard that from a lot of women.
Certain metabolism that can handle vegetarianism, but I'm not so sure about veganism because I think you need those, and like at least eggs and butter or something.
Well, women are more in touch with what their body needs. I think that y'all know how to listen to, oh, I'm tired, I didn't eat the right thing, while dudes were just cramming food and then just trying to make it whether we're tired or not, and it's we're just yeah.
But I would like to just point out, since you mentioned the processed fake meat, pea protein is what the new fake meats are generally composed of, and it is literally industrial waste. So please don't eat too much of it. I mean, anything you eat, if I go and have a Coke, it's not going to kill me. So if you go and have a Beyond Burger, it's not going to kill you. But please don't like make a habit of it.
Right.
It's really not good.
Eating is better than not eating, but whenever it comes to things like industrial waste, which it turns out that a lot of the foods that are given to us are industrial waste.
Yeah. Seed oils, pea protein, fluoride in our water, that's industrial waste.
Yep. But I really appreciate you coming on with me. I had a lot of fun talking to you, and after I read the book, because it's waiting for me in my mailbox, and as a truck they keep sending me to the same place, and I haven't seen my mailbox for over a month. So when I do see my mailbox, it's waiting for me in there, and maybe we can talk about this again.
Awesome, I would love to. Thank you for having me on.
That's great. And so I'm going to close out with a music video from Ill Bill. It's called "How to Survive the Apocalypse." It's something that precedes or proceeds Dystopia. So So either there's going to be an apocalypse before or an apocalypse after. We'll see what happens. I really hope that the world gets better, but it doesn't seem like the people with the power and the money really want it to be. So we'll see. Anyway, here's Ill Bill, How to Survive the Apocalypse.
Started today. Some of us would try to hide and some of us would cry to God and pray. It's a dangerous world on a fragile axis. Most of us aren't prepared if society ever collapses. Major volcanic or earthquake events, tsunami swallowing cities, drowning entire populations to death. It could be nuclear, biological, or chemical war, or martial law, or we could just run out of oil. Those with major health issues won't survive. Anyone on dialysis or a respirator device will die when the power grid fails for days, weeks, or months, or years. Think about the possibility we fear. Power failure leads to no food or water, leading to collapse of law and order. The massive robbery and slaughter, riots and looting, widespread violence and shootings, gunshot battles, survivors take rifles and Uzis. How to survive the apocalypse. How to survive in the world. How to survive the apocalypse. How to survive in the world. How to survive the apocalypse. How to survive in the world. How to survive the apocalypse. How to survive in the world. Having guns ain't the key to survival, though. They're just a piece of a big puzzle, cause it's more about what you know. Practical skills are your most valuable tool. Don't fall into the same traps the amateurs do. Buy your beans, bullets, or band-aids, cause in the last days money's worthless. What don't matter is what you have to trade. So practice raising a vegetable garden. After apocalypse you could survive if you're an exceptional farmer. Old technology could be your salvation. Study how the world survived before modern civilization. Gaining water, food, shelter, fuel, communications, and build weapons and tools they once used to rule nations. Share and watch each other's backs. Choose your friends wisely, increase the probability of everyone surviving. But most of all, build your self-reliance. Protect your family and make sure to always be prepared for violence. How to survive the apocalypse. How to survive in the world. How to survive.